Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. We got a ban list last Friday. If you didn't hear about it or see it, go check out my video from Friday. But today, as we always do when new ban lists come out, we'll be talking about the losers of the ban list in today's video. Come back tomorrow, we'll talk about the winners of the ban list. So not only today, we're going to talk about the direct losers of the ban list. I mean, there's some real obvious ones, right? There's also some indirect losers and also some shifts to the format because of those losers. And we're going to talk about a lot of that in today's video. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. If you guys want to help support the channel, many ways down in the description you can do so as always. But today, if you guys want to step your game up, get ready for the new competitive format, check out Patreon down in the description. You can read the articles that I post there and inquire about coaching if you're interested. Anyways, let's get right into it. Alright, so small recap. We had SS3 Gogeta Marvelous Might being added to the completely banned list. You cannot play this card anymore in competitive events. And we also have SS3 Gogeta Thwarting the Dark Empire being limited to 1 copy per deck. So obviously, big loser, Gogeta Xeno, one of the best and most popular decks of the set 16 format, and it's been a great force in the meta for several sets at this point, right? But we've also got some other losers on the ban list to consider as a result of this. A big one is going to be SSG Trunks. This is a deck that was actually starting to do some more rogue type, high level things towards the end of set 16 format, and it was pretty cool. It was kind of like a mid-rangier, more defensive version of Gogeta because you had some floodgates and some special cards that were only privy to Trunks and Gogeta couldn't play. So basically the dynamic was, if you wanted to be aggro, you were playing the Gogeta version of the entire basically thwarting slash Gogeta package, and if you wanted to play a bit more mid-rangey, have access to some special cards, you would play SSG Trunks. But it really just turned out that Gogeta was the better deck because in a lot of ways you were playing the same engines, doing a lot of the same things, and Gogeta was just faster with it. And the big thing there was Gogeta could present thwarting turn 1 very, very efficiently and consistently, where Trunks couldn't do that. You're really not playing thwarting in Trunks until like turn 2, turn 3. But besides that, I mean, both these decks take huge hits from thwarting going to 1. And we also have, any random rogue Saiyan black deck, really. You have like SS4 Goku, you have SS4 Gohan, which are two like decent leaders, but they lose big time with the thwarting engine being pretty much removed from the game. Another one to consider for sure is Dark Broly. That leader also leaned pretty heavily into the thwarting package and was actually doing some things here and there. I mean, topping some events, topping some non-US events from what we saw and reported here on the channel. So big losses for those types of decks. What is interesting about thwarting though is that I think a lot of decks are just going to start playing it as their one-off overrealm, especially considering that Mass Saiyan, Secret Identity, and Fighting Against Fates, SS4 Bardock. I don't know why I said those names backwards, but those overrealms were banned, and these black decks that can pay the black energy for thwarting, I'm positive will just start playing thwarting as their one of overrealm. And of course, you'll probably still play SS4 Goku Beyond All Limits in most of these decks, especially if you're playing SSG Trunks Power Awaken to set up overrealm 6 very easily. So by doing that, you can actually play multiple thwartings per game. You're just going to have to work for it a little bit more. But overall, these decks are pretty big losers from the ban list. Then we have the hits to red. So we have Piano getting banned, obviously a super direct hit to King Piccolo. Then we have Piccolo Jr. Descendant of the King being limited to 1, which is a hit to red overall as a color. One thing I want to make you guys aware of though is Mass Saiyan Avenger from Another Dimension. Most of his effects honestly don't really matter. They do some things if you're playing a red Saiyan based deck, but the main one is +1, activate main. Place up 20 of your red Saiyan cards with energy cost of 1 in your drop area, then shuffle your deck, and then draw 1 card. So effectively, in terms of their +1s, this Mass Saiyan Unison is the same as Piccolo Jr. What you really lose out on is the auto to pop cards when your opponent activates counter. That's the biggest thing you're losing. The -2 on each of these cards is not the most relevant effect. It never really was, even for Piccolo Jr. in the King Piccolo deck. Could come up in some clutch situations, don't get me wrong, but again, it wasn't really the driving force of the card. So we do have a much lesser alternative to Piccolo Jr. that I want you guys to be aware of. But losers for this, obviously King Piccolo. Deck takes huge hits in the form of Piano's draw power and Piccolo Jr.'s consistency. But again, I mean, if you really wanted to play King Piccolo, just slam 4 copies of that Mass Saiyan Unison and see what you can do. The deck's going to be worse, obviously. I'm not saying the deck is the same without Piccolo Jr. and Piano, but I mean, you've got a 2-drop red Unison to play. SSB Vegeta Spirit Boost Elite takes big hits with Piccolo going to 1 because, I mean, this deck, you just need a 2-drop unison at all times. You need it to awaken. Your leader can grant a double strike on the backside. Of course, again, you can try Mass Saiyan Avenger, which in this type of deck is actually probably pretty good because a lot of times with this deck, you're playing either, you know, U7 cards, which do revolve around Saiyans to some degree, but you can also play the Bardock's Crew engine in SSB Vegeta, which is pretty cool as well. Another thing too is U7 Goku. Now for U7 Goku, there were actually many variants of this deck in the meta. It's actually pretty cool. So you could play a 3-drop unison build revolving around Jiren and Videl encountering danger counterplay. There were also even some 3-drop unison hand control builds featuring like lots of copies of Broly Crown, 4 copies of Red Sin Shenron unison. Those are pretty cool. But the build of U7 that I like the most, and you guys might know this if you watched my deck profile from a week or two ago, is the 2-drop unison build. I'm a big fan of the 2-drop unison build because a lot of times, especially in the previous set 16 format, if you were playing a unison on 3, it was just too costly, especially going second against something like the mirror match. Tapping out on 3 for your unison was really costly, especially if they pressured you hard on your turn 2 and put you down to like 4 life early. Maybe you had to awaken on turn 2. It just wasn't a good thing. But I really like the 2-drop unison version of U7, and that takes a big hit with Piccolo Jr. going to 1. But again, give Mass Saiyan unison a shot. It is effectively the same draw power engine, and it's also searchable in this deck, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But of course, these 3 decks and red as an entire color do take big hits for Piccolo Jr. What's also interesting to note is that Piccolo Jr. is actually a very side deckable unison. Like, look at Red Broly BR. That was a deck that I used to play a lot, and I used to side deck 4 copies of Piccolo Jr. Unison just for that popping when your opponent activates a counter effect. Against Yellow, for example, if they would just go crazy with Robotic Riposte, you could just, you know, side in Piccolo Jr., play more of a value game, start drawing cards, and popping their board when they would play counters. Nowadays, we have Vegeta Resolve Renewed, so maybe that's not the most effective strategy. I'm talking about something from like a couple formats ago, but still something I thought of where red does lose out, unfortunately. And overall, guys, aggro just takes a big hit as a result of the set 17 ban list. That's in conjunction with the cards we talked about, you know, Thwarting and Marvelous Might being hit, as well as the hits to red. And the hit to Fighting Against Fate is a real big hit to aggro. I mean, aggro already took a big hit on, what was it, the set 14 emergency ban list, I want to say, where King Vegeta basically got neutered and all the red free play got hit. So we went from like aggro decks winning on turn 2 average to aggro decks winning on turn 4. I mean, Gogeta, Xeno, and King Piccolo, for as fast and aggressive as they were, most of the time they're ending the game on turn 4, not really on turn 3, even sometimes being pushed later if you're playing against a more seasoned player. So with the best 2 aggro decks being taken out of the meta, I mean, we're probably looking at a turn 5 earliest format, which is going to allow a lot of these control and mid-range decks to really just kind of step into their shoes. But a lot of the control decks especially are going to be able to get to their late game bombs or late game strategies pretty healthily, which is kind of interesting. Going to be a different dynamic to some of the formats we've been used to. But anyways, guys, got a couple more decks to talk about, but real quick, a word from today's video's sponsor. Yo, Dragon Ballers, quick break in the video to give a huge shout out to PPG, who is going above and beyond to make our organized play season the best that it can possibly be. I'm here on the PPG event management website. I'm going to link this down in the description, so all you have to do to sign up for any of these events is go down to that link. But anyways, real quick, we have MomoCon at the end of May, where there is a guaranteed case tournament for Dragon Ball Super. Next up is the Origins event, which is a huge one, guys. They have events going from Wednesday to Saturday. Practically every single day of the con, you can play a Dragon Ball Super event, among other card games. It's going to be an absolutely incredible time. Next up, after that, we have an event in Denver, which is for the Pro Play Tour organized season. Not only are you playing for an invite to the Pro Play Invitational, but you're also playing for $2,000 guaranteed. And if you want to, guys, there is also a Team War event in that same weekend, and Team War is one of the best formats to play. If you haven't played a tournament with your friends, you absolutely have to do it. And then finally, an event that I know for sure that I'll be attending is the Too Many Games convention in Philadelphia. This is actually a regional for the regular Dragon Ball Super organized play season. So again, guys, super huge shout out to PPG. Secondly, this website is so awesomely laid out. All you have to do is go to this website. All these different tabs here will take you to the events you want to sign up for. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video. All right, guys, shout out to PPG as always, but on to the next loser. We have Invoker. Very sad that a lot of players shelled out lots of money for Android 17 most valuable player just for it to get hit so soon, although I'm not complaining about the hit. I actually like it a lot, but that's my own personal bias. Anyways, though, Android 17 has been errata to now cost 3 energy, 2 reds, and 1 blue, as opposed to the 1 energy you see on the screen here. And that's huge. I mean, your main Invoker play, the Barrier Deflect Vegeta, already cost you 3, and the problem with that card was it was vulnerable to certain types of barrier removal, so it wasn't the most reliable, although in a lot of matchups it was very reliable. But the thing about Android 17 was it was way cheaper, and it was a drop area effect, which is very hard to interact with in the Dragon Ball Super card game. There are not lots of popular strong meta strategies that interrupt with the drop area. You could play some rogue decks like Makika Bora or like Shroom and Salsa, but again, very rogue. So this, I mean, I just don't see how Invoker has like a leg up in the format anymore. You're essentially now just playing a Vegeta that, yes, can't really be interacted with in the form of MVP Android 17, but I mean, paying 3 for that, what are you going to do? Turn 4, pay 3, leave 1 open, have to Senzu Bean all your energy, or have to Beerus Super Combo all your energy just to use your Invoker spells? I don't really see it. I mean, there's been a lot of times where the high-level Invoker players have played the game without Invoker for a lot of the time because they couldn't afford to actually stick that Vegeta to the board early in the game. Maybe they'll go back to doing the same exact thing. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a pro Invoker player, but definitely a huge hit to Invoker. And then finally, just talking about the Soul Striker leader, which is actually going to segue us nicely into tomorrow's video, the winners of Set 17 ban list. But yeah, I mean, Soul Striker just goes from being the automatic best blue deck, no questions asked, to now having some questions asked. I mean, the leader does no longer get to awaken at high life for free. You've actually got to play some self-awaken if you want to reliably awaken, because there are lots of times in Soul Striker, from my personal experience, that if you're playing a Unison early enough, I mean, you're going to get stuck at, 7-6 life, and that's why, 4 life draw super combos have not been the most reliable in Soul Striker. But now, again, you got to get yourself down to 4 reliably in order to flip your leader. But what is cool about this, and the thing that I do like, is one, bringing this leader down in power does make other blue leaders playable. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. But the other thing too is that you're not necessarily tied to a 3-cost Unison strategy in Soul Striker anymore, which I actually do like. I've been thinking about blue decks where you can just literally just play 4 baby Unison and not necessarily play these super control-y decks or super ramp-heavy decks, more like a Soul Striker mid-range, and you can rely on just playing 4 copies of Boo, not having to play the 3-cost Unison. So I'm pretty excited to experiment with that. But of course, Soul Striker will see a dip in power, although it's not like it was a crazy force in the meta anyway. But I do kind of agree with the hit, just so that other blue leaders can see contention and have reasons to be played. Especially if the meta shifts more towards blue, we want to see some experimentation. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Are there any other strategies that you can think of that you play that are losing out as a result of the Set 17 ban list? Let me know. Come back tomorrow for the winners video, and I'll see you guys then.
All right, now that you guys finished watching that video, they should have never banned fucking Child's Wish. They shouldn't. Super Shadow was the best deck in the game. Super Shadow was the best!